Are all of these seats, are all... Wow, thank you. But you don't know what you're applauding for yet. But it's a great atmosphere. I'd like to ask you a question. I'm a Dutch director, film director. They call me like the wild man of Dutch film even. I don't know. But I will explain this later. The essence is I'm used to making people do things. Can you please do me a favor? Can you all look to your left side? If there's not an empty chair, there's somebody sitting on your left side. Please turn around a little bit and hug. Give the left side a hug. Please do. Come on. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. The left side and hug. Thank you. That's really great. Oh, wow. Stop. We only have an hour. Stop. Okay. And now once more. First, turn to the left. And then I count to 0. First, please turn to the left. Then you're seeing the back of someone, if it's all right. And now pretend that one is falling from a bitch and you just grab him, just in time. Thank you. Wow, that's really great. My name is Cyrus FRISCH. I'm a film director, I already told you. I've been called the enfant terrible or agent provocateur. I don't know why. I'm only trying to make interesting films, to make your blood flow a little faster, that are exciting to watch, that's all, that evoke emotion somehow. In other words, I'm after the very same thing as any other filmmaker is after. Then why do they call me the wild man of Dutch film? Ever since I went to film school, I was amazed how much money it costs to make a film. Not only that, it also costs a lot of energy of people. To me, this felt like a big responsibility. I can only legitimize it to myself to make a film if I think somehow it's of real importance. But how to define importance? At film school, I was very young, not much experience with life yet. This is a trailer. This is a trailer of the exam film I did. It raised the question how to deal with the sexual freedom gained by the generation of my parents back in the 60s, in this time of AIDS. The film tried to provoke some small questions about modern sexuality. A harmless little film, you might say. The man you just saw has been the most influential film critic of the Netherlands for about 30 years. In fact, he was the only critic in Holland who could make or break a filmmaker's career because of his influence in the Dutch Film Fund. He really hated this film and a few other shorts that I made by then. This is what he said about my work.
Als ik aan Cyrus FRISCH
If
denk,
I think about Cyrus FRISCH and his films,
is het eerste woord dat me te binnen schiet
the first
deerniswekkend.
word that comes to mind is pathetic.
A rebel without a cause.
A rebel without a cause.
Het is decadentie zonder stijl.
It's decadence without style.
Het is alsof iemand in zijn eigen poep zit te roeren.
As if someone's stirring in his own dirt.
Niet geïnspireerd door cinefilie of door andere voorbeelden. Het is het opnieuw uitvinden van de film.
Cinephilia or any other examples.
Ten eigen bate.
It's inventing film all over again.
Als vorm van zelfmedelijden.
For his own sake, as a form of self-pity. These images are part of the first film I made after film school. It's called Self-Pity. While this star journalist is tearing me and my work apart, I'm trying to drown myself in a fishbowl, apologizing for my existence, and making a fool out of myself in any way I can think of. It seemed like the most effective strategy somehow to get this critic off my back. And it worked, because he never wrote anything about me again. But it gave me a very strange feeling. I, who had been telling everybody that a film has to be of real importance because of the money and the energy it costs, I was making this. What is the importance of this? It made me feel guilty. I had the feeling I was wasting my talent on egocentrism. Self-pity is undoubtedly one of the most
I'm just a spoiled little guy.
Egocentric films ever made.
I want your attention.
It did get me some attention, though. I was invited to come to different TV programs and to tell about my work. Suddenly, I felt I found an important subject for a film. I publicly challenged myself to make a film that is morally unacceptable to my audience.
Een paar weken geleden was er godverdomme weet ik veel, een maand geleden in Indonesië dat gezeik, weet je? Er was om 8 uur 's avonds in het journaal iets dat ging over het feit dat er een stammenoorlog was en dat er mensen onthoofd waren.
Every day I could see bizarre and strange fiction on television. The manipulated reality shows from Oprah Winfrey, Jerry Springer and their Dutch counterparts.
Is een filmmaker die gewend is heel snel de shots te tellen en te zien of een kind van 12 die getraind is in dat snelle ritme.
To make a film in which I would do the same, but worse, by vigorously
er zijn dingen die je gewoon beter
and
niet kan
openly
zien.
exceeding the borders of the acceptable. I hope to get some understanding of the exploitation of human suffering on film and television, and to stir up the emotions.
Om te beslissen dat als ik toevallig zep, niets vermoedend, dat ik dat te zien krijg.
Ja,
dat wil ik niet.
Dat is toch jouw keuze om te gaan zitten?
Nee, dat is niet mijn keuze. Sterker nog, ik ga ervoor zorgen dat dat nooit meer gebeurt.
Dan donder je die tv toch gewoon het huis uit?
Met deze film ga ik over de top. Ik ga gewoon over de
welke top?
Ik ga over de grens. Ik ga over de grens van het acceptabele.
I wanted to go over the line of the acceptable. I wrote a script for a film called Forgive Me. And to get in contact with the physically or mentally handicapped people that I needed, I moved from the most idyllic neighborhood of Amsterdam to the grim Gelderse-Kade. These actors would play themselves. We began filming brutal scenes in which their dignity was taken away. See, for instance, how willing Chiquita, one of the main characters, lets herself abuse in this scene. To me, it was very clear that what we were doing was wrong. But when the first edit was shown at the International Documentary Film Festival, the critics reacted extremely positively. I received appreciation for my attempt to say something sensible about the growing acceptance of the use of other people's lives for entertainment. This was not what I was hoping for. In order to achieve my goal, we had to go further. I had to abuse these people even more. I thought of a play using the same actors. I put them on stage so that after buying an expensive ticket, the cultural elite could laugh at these confused actors that hardly knew the difference between acted emotional situations and their real quarrels. Cult hit. The actors seemed to love it. Chiquita and Peter and Nico and Ahmed, they deliberately enlarged their problems. They were playing an exaggerated version of themselves because they felt this is what the audience liked. As a consequence, the play became more and more repulsive. It was me who got very confused. I saw Forgive Me and this play that was part of the film as a dark, strong plea against this exploitation of human suffering. I wanted to protect these people. I meant to show the danger, the confusement of the increasingly blurred lines between documentary and fiction. But if the actors and the spectators, they don't have a problem with it, then who am I to judge? It made me think a lot. It made me think about the meaning of art. It made me think about the responsibility of an artist. How can film or art become of real importance? In the following years, I made more normal films. For instance, why didn't anybody tell me it would become this bad in Afghanistan? The first feature, narrative feature, shot by a mobile phone, with a mobile phone, about a war veteran seeing danger everywhere he looks. The film shows how different expectations between youth of immigrant origin and predominantly white residents in Amsterdam gives rise to rows, creating a growing tension that would not exist if the parties involved would treat each other with a little more respect. The film stresses the need for dialogue and decency through the eyes of this traumatized war veteran. In my next film, Dazzle, the leading character feels guilty about watching people in need and not doing anything to help them. It concentrates on one specific scene she had witnessed of a bum living opposite to her window in a boat. One ugly winter's night, the cold drove him crazy, literally. He started screaming he wanted to die, pleading to God to kill him, naked in the snow. She witnessed this and spends almost the whole film desperately trying to find some good reason why she didn't do anything to save him. This results in expressing a certain kind of anger towards the most vulnerable people in society because they confront her with her inability to save them. Up till here, all my films and plays that I made circled around one simple question: how to deal with the suffering of others. With my next film, Blackwater Fever, I set out to formulate an answer.
En nu? Nu spoken er allemaal beelden door mijn kop.
And now images flow through my head that I can't get rid of anymore.
Als ik naar mezelf kijk,
When
in de
I look at
spiegel,
myself in the mirror,
dan zie ik een man die toekijkt hoe anderen
I see a
creperen.
man who watches others perish.
Ik heb het lef om er naar te kijken,
I have the guts to look,
maar niet om er iets aan te
but
doen.
not to do anything.
Ik pak niet de telefoon om de politie te bellen.
I don't pick up the phone to call the
Ik schuif niet het
police.
raam omhoog om te schreeuwen.
I don't open the window to scream.
Maar als ik in de spiegel kijk,
When I look in the mirror,
zie ik een moordenaar.
I see a murderer. This man calls himself a murderer. Not that he ever got his own hands dirty. He just never did anything to make something bad not happen. He's suffering from blackwater fever, also called malarial hemoglobinuria, one of the most dangerous complications of malaria. Its symptoms include a rapid pulse, high fever, and a passage of urine that is black or dark red in color. That's why it's called blackwater fever. According to this film, there are two ways to watch the misery of others. One is the comfortable position from behind a television or from within a car or behind a computer. But at a certain point, you will notice that you cannot leave these images. This knowledge, in fact, of others in despair, you cannot leave them behind. If you don't do anything to change it, it will catch up with you, somehow or somewhere. It will make you feel feverish. This fever can have many forms: anxiety, desperation, shame, or guilt. It might result in having you started to watch differently. You can, for instance, break or lay aside the mirror that misforms reality. You can turn off the television or the laptop. You can stop the car, get out. You can walk around, smell, touch. You can get in contact. You can talk, raise your voice. You can protest. You can yell. You can do something. It may not seem much, but it makes the fever disappear. So how to deal with the suffering of others? The only answer is to act somehow, or at least by showing compassion and trying to really understand the cause. According to the Dutch newspapers, by now I have developed from the most egocentric to the most socially engaged filmmaker of the Netherlands. But what does the audience get from this? Like most socially engaged filmmakers, my films don't do anything more than creating so-called awareness. How does this make the world a better place? The logical next question for me in order to develop is how to end the suffering of others. How to solve it. I started reading books. I read The Lucifer Principle. I read How Societies Choose to Fail or to Succeed. I read Cradle to Cradle. I read Plan B. I read all the major problems and their solutions. Yesterday, I was told by the Dutch consul 20% of all people in Hong Kong earn less than $1 a day. 20%. Less than $1. This can't be true, can it? I heard, he told me that most mates are working for 20 hours a day for 6 days. Whom of you have mates? This is slavery, modern slavery. The world's a rough place today. At least 840 million people suffer from chronic famine and are only one bad harvest removed from starvation. 2 billion people do not have access to electricity. About 2 billion people have no safe way to dump their shit because there's no sewer system. Hundreds of millions of people are already on the brink of starvation, and we are raising another few billions of hungry people. The global population has mushroomed from 2.5 billion to over 7 billion in just the last 50 years. Every single day, we are welcoming a city the size of Southampton. Every month, we're welcoming a city as big as London. And every year, a complete new country like Germany, extra to feed and clothe and water. Hungry people don't have the energy to work as hard. Economists estimate that approximately $100 billion is lost every year from developing world economies because of malnutrition. Hungry people are sick people, and sick people in turn slide further into poverty. When people are desperate, undernourished, without hope, they blame their governments, which they see as responsible for their problems. They try to emigrate at any cost. They fight each other over land, they will kill each other. They start civil wars. They figure that they have got nothing to lose, so they become terrorists, or they support or tolerate terrorism. We should not conclude that these problems are too big to solve. A friend of mine says, history is not an army on a forward march. History evolves and changes because of the actions of people. We're not passive victims of a future that is unfolding. We can change things. We don't have to be as desperate as the leading character in this last scene of Blackwater Fever. We can make great strides in eradicating poverty and establishing peace by spending less on weapons and war, more on education, by taking a long-term view of the world's problems, by focusing on basic rights for every child, by addressing conflict and injustice in every nation, and by having a much more responsible and sustainable use of the world's finite resources. Did you know each year the world spends $1,464 billion on war, weapons and violence? 1,464 billion. This raises a simple question, I think. Do we want to encourage war, or do we want to encourage peace? The costs needed for fundamentally restructuring the global economy in order to eradicate poverty, stabilize population, restore the economy's natural support systems, and thereby stimulating peace. These have been calculated roughly. For instance, the World Health Organization estimates that providing the most basic health care in developing countries would cost about $33 billion. The additional funding needed to achieve universal primary education, is estimated at $10 billion a year. Providing reproductive health care, family planning, for all women in developing countries, another $17 billion a year. Altogether, reaching basic social goals, restoring the earth, will cost $187 billion a year. Might seem a lot, but now compare it with the $1,464 billion we're spending on war. It's only all the world problems, all of them can be solved by shifting 13% of the world's military budget. We can get rid of hunger, illiteracy, disease. We can get rid of poverty, stabilize world population, and restore the Earth's soils and forests and fisheries. Everything. 13% of what we're spending on war. Please remember this. And why are you still sitting here? I mean, come on, this is something we can change. It would restore hope for everyone, every single person on this planet. I remember a small article from a Dutch newspaper that my girlfriend has given to me a few years ago. It was about a man in China who was rumored to have been saving lives simply by grabbing them just before they jumped from the bridge. This man is called Chen Xi. And suddenly it hit me. Suppose for a second I would be the filmmaker that helped mankind get the priorities right, this 13%, get them right. Suppose I would make that film that creates a social tipping point that we need for change, that is needed to eradicate poverty and violence by simply shifting 13% of the world's military budget. Even then, I would feel frustrated. I would feel frustrated that I will never save a person's life as directly as Chen Xi is doing. Although I will do my best making the most important film possible, I will still feel like a loser, or like someone, like the character, this character in Black Water Fever, who didn't do anything wrong, but he, I mean him of course, but he still considers himself a murderer. Look at him, please look at him. Ask yourself the question, why don't we do anything? 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 Come on. Why don't we do anything? 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 Come on. Why don't we do anything? Why don't we do anything? Why don't we do anything? What do we do? 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 Come on. What do we do? 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 Please help me. What do we do? 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 That is as important as what Chen Xi is doing. What? What? What do we do that is as important as what Chen Xi is doing? This is the question. What do we do that is as important as what Chen Xi is doing? Ask yourself that question, please. Ask it to others as well. How can we ever look, in that mirror, not saving people's lives? I thought it to be a good idea to share this with you, and asked whether the MaD organization could help me find Chen Xi. And they did. They even went to Nanjing to meet him. They asked him to answer some questions. And he wrote me a letter. This is what it says. I'm a simple person. I left Jiangsu for Nanjing to find work in 1990. I have been supporting myself by working at the lowest social stratum. Initially, I was a digger, but was thrown out without payment after a few months. Me and my fellow countrymen, we got together and we found shelter at a relative's and rag-picked to earn our bread. Later, I managed to start a little grocery store and settled down in Nanjing eventually. In 2000, when I was taking a break on the Nanjing Bridge in the middle of a delivery, I saved a person by accident. This struck me tremendously. How nice it is when there's someone to hold you back when you are desperate. After 2000, stories of suicides, mostly of immigrant workers, flooded the media. I felt deeply about this. Migrants do not have friends and families to support them through difficulties. When they cannot take it anymore, they can only choose to end their own lives by jumping. In September 2003, my daughter entered primary school. She and my wife could help with the store on weekends. I couldn't help it anymore. Assured by my life-saving experience in 2000, I decided to go to the bridge and to save lives during the weekend and the holidays. Since 2003, I have saved 194 lives. I don't see this as an achievement. Indeed, I feel sorry for the ones I couldn't save. 10 each year jumped right in front of his nose. Thus, I persevered, although it's a tiring and difficult task. In all these years, I've been traveling back and forth the bridge on a scooter. It's hard to save lives on a 4,577-meter long bridge without transport. I'm now the assistant of a boss of a logistics company, and I earn 2,600 yuan a month. I keep a diary on what is going on the bridge, and all I want is to get my experience on paper so that psychologists or troubled people can take it for reference. I'm not well educated, so the text is not well written, and no one will publish it. As a commoner, I'm not qualified to share how I saved lives. Now I save lives from 8 to 5 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. I bring people I saved to my soul post, where we can talk further. Some volunteers with knowledge in psychology would give a hand. When the talking is done, we call the family or we send the person home. Guarding the bridge is patrolling back and forth on a scooter. The most difficult part is the follow-up. Sometimes I saved someone and he had nothing to stay. I could only bring him to a hostel, but the charge is high. I think suicide is not a phenomenon. It's an illness that needs the whole world's attention. I hope to be supported by a foundation. I hope more people will join the cause. I do not have dreams. When I was small, I dreamt of having a mom. When I grow up, I hope for a safe and peaceful life. A safe and peaceful life for all. I do not have plans. I do not have time for plans. People are still jumping off the bridge. It's Sunday today, isn't it? Weekend. My power is limited. I could only be a lamp to shine their path. And Cyrus, I understand your frustration that your films do not as directly save lives as I do. And Cyrus, I understand your frustration that your films do not as directly save lives as I do. But I think you can use your films to enlighten people. Your movies can influence people and change their minds. You can use your film to enlighten people and arouse a value that we should love our life. So I still think it is meaningful, and I want you to keep on doing this. I think we should have a live phone connection now with Gen Z. I really hope that you want to ask him something, that perhaps you can talk for a few minutes and I will join afterwards. So please have a conversation with Chen Si.
陳思其實而家喺個電話度嘅，如果你哋想同佢傾偈咧，而家係可以同佢傾偈嘅。
陈思大哥您好，我们现在在那个会场里面了，然后下面有很多观众，然后呢，现在这个荷兰的导演 Cyrus 呢，想让那些观众看看他们有什么问题可以问您，然后和您聊一下天。
好的。
陈先生您好，听得到吗？我非常佩服您做的事情。我现在的关心的是，就您做了这些事情之后，在政府方面有没有引起什么反响？他们有没有用任何方式帮助你，或者是金钱，甚至是说有没有办法在那条桥上建立一些设施，就是让人没有办法跳？因为你们的力量毕竟是有限，你们拉了一个，可能拉不到第二个。
政府其实对这件事情也是挺支持的，因为我们国家到目前为止对心理方面这种情况认识还不是太慎重。就是自从2003年9月19号我上大桥救人开始，大概在2006年的时候，我们南京就成立了一家危机干预中心，但是呢，和我们民间的好像没有挂钩，好像和我们民间的没有怎么样的沟通和联系过。
那就是说，就是说，您觉得说国家的话对这个心理的问题还不是特别的重视，就是您救了人之后，过了几年，然后他们才开始说有一些那些心理的救助中心，然后来帮助这些人说让他们不要去跳下去，就是不要去自杀，大概这个意思吗？
意思是这样，意思就是说，在2006年开始，南京就成立了一个危机干预中心。但是这个干预中心呢，它只是还是停留在一个研究，停留在一个研究上面，还没有和我们这个民间的在大桥上面救人的这些团体，这个队伍沟通过。
就是说，他那个是有一个这样的一个中心，就是心理研究的中心，他只是做一些研究层面的东西，和你们这些民间的，就是当中是没有一个联系的。
对。
所以就是说，您还是觉得说国家在这方面做的还不够，就是您能希望他们在研究的就是之后能够和你们的这些实际的民间的工作然后结合起来。
对，其实我们民间做这个事情，是因为我之所以去做这件事，也就想赋予13亿的中国人，更多的这个爱影响到需要救助和需要帮助的这个层次，这个重点去。但是呢，我们民间这些力量倒是不少，我们需要政府有序的有一个善后的妥善管理，然后我们在前线就做这件事情，感觉意义就更大了。
好，就是您觉得说您做这件事情，然后是希望能够呼吁13亿中国人都来做这些事情，然后呢，您也更希望说政府能够做一些善后的工作，就是说您救了一个人之后，然后他后面比如说怎么样回到自己的老家，然后说怎么样后面让他有就是更好的生活，然后不让他再产生这些自杀的念头，这个是您希望政府能够再配合您的是吧？
另外呢，我也是从侧面还是这样讲，还想讲呢，就是说我们这么多的人，需要很多的公益人士出来去维护去做，但是我们也给民间成立基金为政府解忧。
不好意思，能不能再说一遍？不是很清楚。
就是说，我想呢，通过自己的活动，也赋予更多的人做公益事业。也希望我们每个公益事业的人都有自己的基金，为政府解忧。
就是说，您觉得说，您希望通过自己的行动，然后呼吁更多的人来参与这个公益事业，然后另一方面是就是从民间来配合政府做得更好，是吧？
对。
好，那我想问一下，有没有回答你的问题？
就说那所以现在他政府其实做的就您觉得其实是还不够的，对吗？
就是他问您说是您觉得现在政府做的还不够是吗？
不是认为这个情况，因为像我 是通过公民一个，但是我对政府是没有什么任何评价。我认为不是说政府做的不够，而是这个做的很好，认识不够。
好，就是说陈思大哥是觉得说不是政府做的不够啊，是说现在对这些方面的认识还不够。就是他觉得他自己救人是自己的事情，然后对政府的话他觉得就是这样一个情况，就是说认识不够，然后觉得以后还是会有改善的空间的。
喂，你好，我想请问一下，每一个你救了的人，你在就是救了以后有没有任何心灵上的辅导？因为你只是身体上救了他，那心灵上呢有没有一些善后的工作？比如说给他一些方向啊，或者是可能不是你，或者有没有就是你的团队或者其他的人会除了在身体上救他以外，心灵上给他一些方向？谢谢。
这位观众主要是想问您说，您救人以后，您救人是一个身体上的过程，然后救了以后，您在心理上面有没有帮助他们，然后是怎么样帮助他们的？
好的，因为从2006年12月1号，我就建立一个心灵驿站。我建立这个驿站呢，就是有男的两床，女的两床，我有只能这个条件。就是我救下来这些人呢，然后在我们的心灵驿站里头过渡，有社会上面的心理医生、志愿者，给他们提供心理善后辅导，然后被确定他们在康复的情况下，我们才可以给他送回家。这个情况就这样。
然后陈思大哥是说呢，就是他在那个2006年的12月份呢，开了一个救人驿站，然后呢，那个驿站里面是有2间房间，一间房间里面有就是一间房间是给男的住的，然后有2张床，另外一间房间是给女的住的，也有2张床，然后是一个就是隔开来的2间房间。然后他们就是好像救下来的人以后呢，会把这些人送到他这个救人驿站，让他们住一下。然后呢，会有一些社会上的志愿者，还有一些心理医生，这些是民间自发的，他们会来这个救人驿站，对这些救下来的人给他们一些心理辅导。然后在经济情况和及各方面情况下，就是允许的情况下呢，最后会帮他们，比如说买火车票或者买就是公交车的票，然后送他们回老家。因为很多其实救下来的人是那些在南京打工的人，然后他们就是可能经济上有些困难，然后需要送回家，大概是这样的情况，对吗？
对。
好。你等一下，还有一个观众有问题。
好的。
喂，陈先生你好，我之前看过你的报道，我想问一下，你们团队今后发展的这个方向大概是什么样？是说比较侧重于继续救助这些人，并且给予他们善后的这些干预和支持呢，还是说更侧重于对于处于心理亚健康这个状态人的帮助，让他们在就是说没有产生自杀念头的这个时候，就对他们进行一些救助？
陈大哥您好，就是这个观众呢是想问您说，您和您的团队今后的发展方向是怎么样的？是说继续这样子救人，然后给他们进行一些善后的工作和心理辅导，还是说就是想针对一些心理亚健康的人，就是说他们是有可能想自杀的，然后对这些人进行一下辅导，就在他们自杀之前就把他们救下来。
你打这个电话就是我对外公布的一个心理咨询电话。我这个电话其实也很累，就是每一年大概要有累计2万人次这个心理咨询，都是通过这部电话。然后我是在工作之余，在上班之余，在睡觉之余，然后给他们做一些解答，只能尽自己力量去做。然后对于这个我们的团队呢，救人目前情况下呢，这几年还是一直是我一个人在救。这个善后工作呢，现在已经有圣保罗圣保罗这个教会有一些这个志愿在做，情况就这样。
好，就是陈思大哥说呢，他这个电话其实也是他的一个心理咨询电话，每年大概有2万人次的人呢会打他的电话，然后来跟他咨询一下心理上的问题。然后他会在上班之余，然后睡觉之余呢，然后就接听这些人的电话，回答他们的疑问。另外他的团队啊，他说其实他自己的团队是一直在做这些救人工作的。然后现在呢，在南京有一个圣保罗教会的志愿者，他们会做一些善后的工作，大概就是这样的一个情况。
Most people that he has saved, what are the causes of their suicide? Is it because they feel lonely or because they don't have money? What are the causes of most of the suicide cases? What are the main causes of it?
陈思大哥，这位观众他想问您说，您救下来的这些人，他们就是大部分人是什么原因促使他们自杀？
好，现在从目前情况，这个1年多，我总结的经验呢是这样来分析的。情感问题占30%。
不好意思，能不能再说一遍？
好，经过1年多的救人，我总结的经验，因为情感问题占30%，因为这个心理疾病占30%，因为这个虐待问题、家庭暴力问题占30%，因为突发事件占10%。
就是大部分是，比如说是因为情感问题，然后因为有心理疾病，然后还有一些是家庭暴力，然后还有一些就是突发事件。
对。
大概这些情况。现在那个导演想问您，你现在是在哪里？
我现在是在大桥下边有个公园，公园也进不去，就在公园门口，一个靠近江边的地方。
好。
喂，你好，
请让先回答一下前面他那个导演的问题。导演前面想问说，那个陈思大哥现在在哪里？他现在是在那个南京大桥那个下面，然后下面呢有一个公园，公园门口。因为就是他今天是星期六，今天星期天，他要救人，所以现在我们要跟他打电话，要找一个稍微安静一点的地方回答我们的问题。
感到焦慮，想喺橋上邊。而家佢都喺橋下邊，佢有冇感覺到想上橋？
那現在那個導演問您說，您現在是不是特別想上去救人？就是我們現在這個就是我們現在這樣，您跟您打電話，您在橋下邊。
對，現在因為我到世界了就要去了。
就是你說說上面有人是需要救人是嗎？
那不一定，但是我按照道理現在應該上去了。
好。
What I felt in the audience when I was talking about you and your work, I think it's like everybody's when they understand that this is real, they admire you so much, and I would like to thank you.
就是导演主要是想说，他就是想谢谢你，他觉得是说他自己还有下面的观众都非常的崇拜您，然后还想谢谢您，然后您做了就是他一直想做的事情，谢谢您。
谢谢他们。
And does he have any, before we leave, does he have any advice for us?
另外那个导演想问您说，您对现在的观众，就是在场的观众有没有一些建议或者？
好，也说2句吧。感谢这么多热心的观众，你们对我这件事情的关怀，谢谢你们。我会用我的实际行动，就为那些需要帮助的人做出我的贡献。也谢谢你们，希望你们保重自己心灵，保重自己身体。
那陈思大哥就是说，感谢大家对他的关注，然后就是他会尽他的所能救更多的人。另外，也就是想对大家说，希望大家能够保护好自己的心灵，保护好自己的身体。谢谢陈思大哥。
谢谢。
那就先这样。那要先这样，您要不足，您就继续上去救人。好，谢谢您，再见。
好，拜拜。
Okay.